Just shout if you want.
Climate change is a lot more than an environmental issue. It's very much a global health issue, with increasingly frequent droughts, floods, natural disasters, food insecurity, water scarcity, mass population migration, and so on. Climate change is one of the biggest global health threats of the 21st century, and this is really about the UK as much as it is about the developing world. The 2003 European heatwave, unprecedented and attributed to climate change, killed 35,000 people in Europe, 15,000 in France, mostly in Paris and the areas surrounding it. Now, you're talking to a group of students and delegates to the conference, and we're the future health professionals in the world. In a few years, we're going to graduate and we'll grow up, and we will inherit the world that you leave behind. And it'll be up to us to deal with the climate change health impacts, and it will be our health that is most affected. And as a 21-year-old looking into the future, I'm looking to you to protect the health of your population and our patients. So my question is this. If elected, what would you do to protect the health of the UK population and indeed your constituents against climate change?
Ken, I'm going to start with you on this one. The UKIP's been in the headlines in the last couple of days. I don't know if any of you have seen on the climate change issue, and I wonder what you say.
I don't off the top of my head know what the policy of UKIP is, but what I do know is that we have this great big talk about climate change. Where is the evidence? Where is the evidence? We've had this type of changes. We've had this type of we've had this type of changes many times in the past. Now we're spending loads and loads and loads of money, increased taxation and God knows what, for something that is extremely doubtful. That's all I have to say on that.
Again, perhaps slightly expanding my role, I can help you out a little bit by quoting Geoffrey Bloom, the UKIP MEP. I'm sorry, I wasn't being unfair, I just saw it in the paper yesterday.
Do you agree with me?
He says, as far as I'm concerned, man-made global warming is nothing more than a hypothesis that hasn't got any basis in fact. So you're towing the party line anyway.
No, it's not the party line, it's my line.
Tony, what's your view on this?
Yeah, it won't surprise you that I disagree with UKIP. Climate change is real, it's happening, and we need to do something about it. I think the Liberal Democrats probably have the strongest policy of any party on climate change. We are talking about zero carbon emissions by 2050. We're talking about zero carbon emissions for electricity generation, non-nuclear electricity generation by 2050. We're talking about high-speed rail networks throughout the country to avoid the problems with public transport. We're talking about warm home programs of insulating and bringing housing up to a proper standard so we use less energy in the first place and don't need to generate so much in the first place. We're talking about, let me tell you, only the last couple of weeks, Simon Hughes put a motion into Parliament for the 1010 motion, which was about reducing the government and public services the emissions of carbon dioxide by 10% by the year 2010. And despite the fact that there was a degree of parliamentary cross-party support for that, that was actually rejected by the government. So it's nonsense. Governments actually can do something about it. They can actually manage a lot of the areas themselves. You can do something about it in hospitals, for goodness sake. We need to address it. I think you're absolutely right. I've got a grandchild coming. I shan't necessarily be around in 2050, but my children, I hope, will be. My grandchildren will be. We need to leave the world in a state which is fit for them and not consume all the resources and destroy the climate because we've been profligate and selfish.
Can I ask you to respond briefly to Ken's opinion and that view? How do you think we should be addressing that difference that does exist?
I think well, in 2005, I was on platforms with Ken as well when he said similar sorts of things, and Alan Simpson summed it up when he said, well, let's get back into the real world now, Ken. And I think that's the situation. We need to get back.
I just reminded him about that.
And frankly, that remark is just not appropriate, or it is fantastic. It doesn't make sense.
It makes very good sense. We've got to think about it.
Lillian.
I just want to touch on two different aspects of it, really. First of all, I'm very pleased that within I work for Unison here in Nottingham, covering the whole of the East Midlands, and one of the things I've been doing in my role is trying to develop our network of environment reps, where we can train people up within who are stewards or representatives in their workplaces to then go and be talking to their employer about how they can work together to make their workplaces more energy efficient and to reduce carbon emissions. So I'm hoping that that's happening, and some of those reps will be working in NHS settings, and some of them will be working in local authorities or police or whatever. And I think, and one of the things that we did as part of a recent conference we held to try to encourage them was showing them, of course, the Al Gore film. And I think it's almost that should be obligatory. And I know my daughter came home from school having seen it, and she was full of, concern about and what should we be changing at home in order to make sure that all these things didn't happen. So I think, I'm surprised at what Ken says, because I think most people realise that these are very serious concerns, that these things are happening now. And if there are still people out there who doubt that climate change is happening and it's going to have a very significant impact across the globe, then for goodness sake, we need to improve that education.
Can I ask you just to move on to talking about the national determinants and how you view the government's response so far?
I think in terms of the Labour government, I think we should be very proud of our record in terms of starting to really take seriously climate change. We've had the climate change bill. We've got legally binding targets to limit emissions, and they're very significant limits on emissions that we're looking for. The UK will more than meet its targets under Kyoto. And I think there are lots of very practical things that people can see around them that are happening. The Warm Front programme, more than £20 billion spent in the last 9 years on tackling fuel poverty. 2 million households assisted under that programme to improve insulation, to improve their energy efficiency. On a even more local level, people will know that 5 years ago, the council started running the tram in Nottingham, which obviously is a very clean, green form of transport, and that's now due to be expanded with 2 more lines, one of which will go pretty much straight past here. I'm very, pleased that that's been supported, that's been developed by the local Labour Council here in Nottingham. It's a shame the Conservatives aren't here, because perhaps they could actually say where they stand on it, because they're very unclear about that. And obviously, it's really vitally important that we look at improving our energy generation and really expand the amount that we generate through renewables. I was down in the southwest this week and just hearing about some of the plans for offshore wind and the potential, to harness wave power on the Severn. Absolutely amazing, and we've really got to make sure that we invest in those things now, and we are investing in those things now, so that we can actually pass on a planet that isn't spiralling out of control to our children and grandchildren.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I want to try and ask our panel. I think it's probably fair to say that this group of young, as you heard from the buzzer, we're out of time. So I just want to really thank all of our panelists, and I think I'm sure that they will all agree that it's been educational for everyone involved, hopefully for all of you and also for the panelists. I want to just end by saying I hope that there's more sessions like this. I think it's very good to show Medsin's active engagement with politics. And I would urge you all to continue engaging with it, both in particular in this time in the run-up to the election. Use all the tools that have been suggested. Use the parliamentary requirements. Use the House of Commons. Think about other ways you can affect politics, whether that's some of the campaigning activities, where you put your money, where you get the energy for your house, all these things. I think it's really important. And as I say, I think the final thing is, I think all of our candidates have expressed before we started that they're very keen to this to be a start for dialogue. They've all accepted and appreciated things you said, so I think that use this to engage with them, help them continue to learn from you and from each other. Thank you very much, and enjoy the session.